What's up guys, welcome back, and in this video I'd like to work on updating the quantities in a shopping cart. I'd like this to be somewhat user-friendly so that the user doesn't have to click a submit button when they update the quantity. This will involve an Ajax request, so let's go ahead and figure out how we can do that. I'm going to be using Axios to do this, but if you prefer you can use something like the Fetch API or even jQuery to make the requests. The reason I'm using Axios is because it already comes installed with Laravel, and it also pairs nicely with Vue.js. In this video, I'm not going to be using Vue.js, but I definitely will in future videos when we implement other JavaScript related features. So the idea here is to change the quantity through this dropdown, and as we do that, we want everything to update here. Now, if this was a single page app, we wouldn't refresh the page and we'll just update all the values that need to be updated dynamically. But since I'm not building a single page app here, I'm good with just refreshing the page and showing a flash message. So I'm going to be doing that. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's go to the cart page and let's just add some JavaScript down here at the end. A new section called extra.js. If you look at my layout file, you'll see that I have a section for extra.js somewhere here, right here. So let's just add script. I like to wrap everything in an invoking function, and let's just make sure that works. Okay, cool. The next thing I want to do is make sure Axios works. So if you go into our bootstrap.js file, you'll see that Axios is actually installed already. And it does all the stuff that it needs to do in order to work, like send the headers. So that's part of the reason I'm using it. If we go into our app.js, I think. Yep. Requires the bootstrap file. We don't need Vue yet, so I'm going to comment this out for now. And let's run an npm run dev. And while that's going, let's also add that file in here. src equals, it's just js app.js. And that should include Axios. This will probably be in the layout file later on, but since we're only working with this page for today, then we'll just leave it here for now. So what do we want to have happen? We want to add an event listener on each item in the shopping cart. So we have to go ahead and do that. Now, I just want to use vanilla JavaScript for this. It's probably easier using jQuery, but I'm just going to use vanilla JavaScript with some ES6 to do this. So if you look at the drop down here, you'll see that I've added a class of quantity. So let's go ahead and grab all of those class names. So const class name equals document dot query selector all, and let's grab the quantity. And that's going to give us something called a node list, which is not really an array, but sort of like an array. And I want to be able to iterate over all of the items it's found and add an event listener to them. But since it's not an array, we can use an ES6 function to convert it into an array called array.from. And we pass it in the class name. And then now this right here is an array. So we can do for each function, we pass in the element. So we want to add an event listener. And which event do we want to listen to? We want to listen to the change event. So whenever someone changes the drop down here. So add event listener, and change. This is also taking a callback. And let's just alert changed to see if it works. Alright, let's see if this works. So when I change it, let's see if the alert message comes up. And it does. Awesome. Let's see if it happens for this one too. And it does. So we know our event listener is being attached to every item in the cart. Awesome. Now we're ready to go ahead and do our Ajax request. So let's work on the backend first before we use Axios. Just go into our routes file and let's make the backend route for updating a quantity. So I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to change it to a patch request. We can do cart product. We can do update here. We can call it cart.update. And in our cart controller, I might have deleted it, so let's go ahead and add that. Okay, and for now, let's just return request all. And we'll do a test within our front end to see if we're hitting this route. All right, now let's work on getting Axios to work. So if we go here to the GitHub page, and we can just copy this bit of code here and adopt it to our needs. So what are we doing here? Right here, we can paste that code in, re-indent it. Okay, so we're making a patch request to cart slash, this is hard-coded for now, just a 5. We'll make it dynamic later on. Just want to see if we can hit our backend correctly. And this is where the parameters you want to pass in go through. So let's just do, so again, we'll hard code this for now. And we can console log the response if it's successful, and we can console log the error if it's not successful. So yeah, let's see if that works. All right, back here. Let's open our console here. And let's see if we change that, do we get the correct response? And we should, yep, we're getting quantity 3 here because we hard-coded 3 right here. So awesome, we know Axios is working, we know it's responding to our backend. So the next thing we want to do is actually, okay, let's work on making this part dynamic. So here we're going to need the ID of the product. So we have to pass that in somehow. So up here in our dropdown, right here, I want to add an attribute called data ID, and I want to pass it item row ID. And now in our JavaScript, we can reference that. So let's go ahead and grab the ID. Const ID equals element dot get attribute data ID. And now we can append the proper ID here. So I want to use ES6 template strings here. So we can do something like this. $sign ID. And for our quantity, all we have to do is give it this dot value. So now let's see if it's passing the correct value. So refresh this. Okay, so let's see, if we change it to 5, it should pass in 5. And if we look here, there it is, quantity 5. If we change it to 4, There you go, quantity 4. Awesome. So now let's work on actually updating the quantity in our backend. So if you go back to our cart package here, you can see that to update, all we have to do is call cart update, give it the ID and the quantity. So let's go ahead and do that. So back to our controller. We don't need this. Cart update. The row ID is the ID that we're passing in. And the quantity is request.quantity. And since this is an Ajax request, we can't just return redirect to a route. We have to return a JSON response. Let's go ahead and do that. So return response JSON, and we'll just do something like this. Success, true. So let's see if this works. So right now, we have 2 items in our shopping cart. If we do this, okay, and if we refresh the page, let's see if this updates to 3 items in our shopping cart. And it does. So now I just want to make sure that we refresh our page and show a flash message here. And also make sure the quantity is updated here after the page is refreshed, and also the price, and just make sure everything else still works. So we want to flash a message here, so we can do that in the session. And our JavaScript will be the one responsible for refreshing the page. So in order to do that, we'll just do session flash, flash, and we'll give it a success message of quantity was updated successfully. Okay. And now in our JavaScript, when we're successful, we can just refresh the page here. So window.location.href equals, and since we're still in a blade file, we can actually do this. We just want to redirect back to the cart page, so cart.index, and that should be good. We don't need this anymore. Now let's go ahead and see if a flash message is shown here and the page is refreshed. So let me just refresh it before I do it. So right now there's 3 because we updated this one, and let's update this one to 2 and see if a refresh message comes. And that worked, but I'm not sure if I have my flash message here. I spelled it incorrectly, so let's go ahead and try that again. Refresh that, change this to 3, and there you go. There's the flash message, and we have it successfully showing there. Now let's work on making sure that the correct quantity shows in this dropdown when the page is refreshed. So back into our cart.blade.php, let's see where that is. So right here, we want to dynamically select the one that is the correct quantity. And to do that, we can just do a ternary here. So let's just check the item quantity. If it equals 1 here for this specific one, then let's output selected. If not, we'll output nothing. Okay, and we can add this 2 to the other ones. Now, I specifically made it so that you only can have a quantity of 5, but there's no validation on that yet. We'll work on that in a second. Let's just update this. 2, 3, 4, 5. Same here. Actually, yep, that's good. Let's see if this works now. So if I refresh the page, these quantities should update, and it should be a total of 6. There we go, 3 and 3. And if we change it back to 1, There you go. 3 and 1 is 4. Let's check this one. Back to 6. These are updating correctly. And everything looks good here. Let's fix the price here because this is the incorrect price for this quantity. So that's easy enough. Let's just go back to our cart. And right here, instead of item.model.present price, we're going to change it to present price, that helper we made, and we're going to do item subtotal. And that should do it. See if that works. There you go. That's the price of 5. Let's increase this one, see if it works. Yes, it does. This is still correct. It looks correct. Now, if you want to make this more dynamic, we can use a loop here. Let's quickly do that. So for I equals 1, start at 1. I is less than the amount you want, in our case 5, plus 1 to offset the 0 index. And I++, okay. Let's just grab this. And then, so item quantity equals I. Selected. Also, we have to change this to I. So let's just do that. And now that should be dynamic. So see if it still works. See if it's still 5. Yep, 7. That looks good to me. Still 5 there. And now if you want more, we can just change this value here. So if you want 10, should be 10 here. Awesome. Change it back to 5. Now let's do some validation here. Like I said, I only want, let's refresh this, in between 1 and 5. So if there's another value that's entered that's not between 1 and 5, I want that to be an error. So we're going to have to use the validator here. So let's do validator make, pass in the request, everything from the request, and let's pass in an array, and we just want the quantity to be required for sure. We want it to be numeric, and we want it to be between 1 and 5. And so this is the happy path here, like we already did, but we want to catch the non-happy path if it fails. So if validator fails, what do we want to do here? So let's copy this here, and we don't want a success message, we want an errors message, and we want to pass in a collection here because it's not just a message, it's a collection of messages, error messages. So if we do collect and we pass in array of messages, quantity must be between 1 and 5, and that should do that. And then the response success is false, and if you want to be fancy, you can pass in an HTTP response here. I think 500. Let's look for a good response code here. HTTP response codes. Let's see. I think 400 is good. It's a bad request. Let's do 400 here. Okay. And how do we test this? So we can just test it using the dev tools, and we can just spoof a value that's not between 1 and 5. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's inspect this, and let's just change one of these values right here. Let's change it to 6. And let's try to change it to 6 and see if we get the error message pop up here. Actually, that worked, but it's not going to refresh. You can see we got the error here. Not sure what's 500. I set it to 400. Anyways, but we have to do something. We have to refresh the page in our JavaScript the same way we did before. So here, we have to do the same thing here. And do that. And that should show the message. Let's try that again. You have to change this value to 6. Let's change it to 6. And now if I try to use that value, hopefully this page refreshes and we get that error message. There we go. That worked, but it refreshed. Did I spell it wrong? We forgot to import this validator. Let's just make sure we import that. I believe it's this one. Let's try it again. Change this to 6. Oops. So let's change this to 6 quickly. And we should get an error message here. Actually, that's not going to work. Let's change this one to 7. Okay, now we should get an error message. There we go. Quantity must be between 1 and 5. Awesome. Alright, I want to do one more test just to make sure that our quantities are being passed through to the Stripe backend. So let's just change these. This is 2 MacBook Pros and 3 laptop 8s for a total of 5 items and $10,734.94. So let's go ahead and check out. Looks good here. Okay, 2 and 3, that's what I did. Let's just quickly fill this out. And let's do this. And that seemed to have worked. Let's go into our Stripe backend, see if it comes up. And there it is right there. Let's check the metadata. Yep, 2 MacBook Pros, 3 laptop 8s, and for a total of 5. And there's the amount there. So yeah, it looks like it worked. So there you have it, guys. We managed to add the ability to update the quantity of our shopping cart contents using Axios. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so, as we'll be adding more features to our application in the future. Thanks for watching, guys. See you guys next time. Okay, thanks. Bye.